Dear Soil Not Oil people who've gathered at this year's conference, I send you my love from India. I also thank Miguel for his persistence. I wrote the book Soil Not Oil, and this is the Indian edition, as a little booklet in the lead up to the Copenhagen summit. And there were two reasons I wrote it. First, because on the one hand, the movements for the earth, for the rights of Mother Earth, the rights of our living Gaia were growing. And on the other hand, there was a forgetting about the fact that the earth is living and the problems have been created by oil, but oil not just as the 100-year fossilized element that is fluid, but the 400 years of the solid coal that drove the empire, or at least put the foot of colonialism on a high-speed accelerator. And colonialism itself is part of an empire that in its mind and its heart was a fossilized empire. And the minds of the colonizer had to die. The hearts of the colonizer had to die and be fossilized in order to treat other human beings as barbarians, worthy of being exterminated and slaughtered, and turning this beautiful land, our beautiful earth, our beautiful soil, from Terra Madre, how she has been seen, Pachamama, into Terra Nullius, the empty land, empty of people, empty of life. So when I wrote Soil Not Oil, I said the transition from oil to soil is a multi-dimensional transition of economy, of politics, and culture. First, it is an economic transition from a fossil-driven, globalized economy, one that favors corporations by subsidizing oil and outsourcing costs to the network of renewable energy-driven, climate-resilient local economies. These economies are grounded in the soil, literally and metaphorically. Second, the transition from oil to soil is a political transition. It is a transition from undemocratic political structures which impose globalization and a fossil fuel infrastructure on society and force the large-scale uprooting of peasants and indigenous people to a decentralized democracy in which local communities have a say in what happens to their land and their lives. Something that is so desperately needed in the world today, as like 500 years ago, indigenous people are being exterminated across the world, in every continent. It's as if the COVID pandemic had given a new license to the colonizers to conquer the earth and other people. Third, the transition from oil to soil is a cultural transition, from a deadly consumerism to reclamation of our rightful place as co-creators and co-producers with nature. Today, it is about 11 years later, and the message of Soil Not Oil is more deep than ever before. Not only because of the fact that we now know very much everywhere, including all the amazing friends who are speaking at this conference, that an industrial agriculture is a very big part of the climate problem, something that the climate movement did not put into the full scope of things. My work at that time showed about 45% of all emissions, greenhouse gases, come from an industrialized, globalized food system, about 18% from the production. And the production is not just the big combined harvesters, but it is also the synthetic fertilizer, where for 1 kilogram of nitrogen fertilizer, you use 2 liters of diesel. And then that emits nitrous oxides, which are 300 times more deadly than carbon dioxide. But they were originally meant to make explosives and ammunitions. And that's why we should connect our discussion to the tragedy of the Beirut blast. This was fertilizers in that warehouse, ammonium nitrate. In Hitler's Germany's, they made explosives, and later they became the base of an agriculture. Much as the industry tries to claim that they produce food more efficient and use less land, and in England, the new discourse is land-saving agriculture. But they're not saving land, otherwise why would they have to invade the Amazon for soya bean? Why would they invade the Indonesian rainforest for palm oil? We don't need so much soya bean. Most of it anyway goes for biofuel and animal feed. And we definitely don't need palm oil in everything. I have experienced how the dumping of these oils destroys our economies. I had to do a civil disobedience against the dumping of soya and making our oils illegal and criminal and shutting down about 55 million cold press oil mills, which created self-reliant local economies. So about 18% of the emissions come by burning the forests. Another 20% comes from ultra processing of food, making, packaging, mining mountains. Most of the bauxite mined today is not for aeroplanes and cars anymore. It's for food packaging. And all food packaging is also plastic. It's also a lot of trees. If you've noticed in the lockdown, Mr. Amazon, Mr. Jeff Bezos, increased his wealth by about 50 billion. How? Because as local economies were shut down, he is now taking orders in my India, where our vegetable vendor used to come to our doorstep. And he's taking grocery orders. He already destroyed the publishing industry. He destroyed bookstores. Now he wants to destroy the food system and get rich. And then he says, oh, now I've made so much money. What else can I do with it but fly to Mars? And I say, Mr. Elon Musk and Mr. Bezos and everyone else of the billionaires who destroyed the world, whom I call the 1%, go fly to Mars. The earth will be better off without you. We'll be able to take the care of the soil without your interference. And then there is the huge processing and food miles, transporting food long distance, and the waste. That's 50% of the problem. But the same system that's giving us greenhouse gases and climate change is also giving us pandemics. After all, by now we know that the recent pandemics, whether it's COVID-19, SARS, Corona, MERS, Zika, Ebola, these multiple names that keep coming up, they are all a result of deforestation. And the United Nations has said, we're only treating the symptoms if we keep talking about this virus. The real problem is we are destroying nature. And if we don't stop destroying nature, we will have permanent pandemics. Of course, for Big Pharma, this is wonderful news because they'll be able to sell more vaccines. They'll be able to control our lives more. So for them, it's not a problem. But the same industry giving us 50% emission is also giving us chronic diseases. It's all this processed and toxic food. We've done a study on food for health, and let me share you the figures of the high cost of an industrial food system for our health. It's not just creating obesity and diabetes. It's giving us cancer, 2.5 trillion, diabetes, 2.5 trillion, endocrine disruption, 549 billion, infertility, 3.6 billion, antibiotic resistance, infections, 1 trillion, obesity, 1.2 trillion, birth defects, 22.9 billion, and degenerative neurological diseases, 2.4 trillion, autism, 171 billion. The Center for Disease Control has said that every second American will be autistic. And every scientist is saying it's because of the way we've damaged our gut. Because our gut is the soil within us. Just like the soil has beautiful microbes, the forest has beautiful diversity, our gut microbiome is a rich ecosystem. All these diseases make the epidemic infections much worse. The figures for diabetes are 9.2. The figures for increase in risks with cancer are 7.6. And if you look at the data, where did most people die? They're the people who had been deprived of real food, people who were having to live on junk and fake food and cat food and dog food. And with the pandemic, more people have gone hungry. The lines for soup kitchens are growing all the time. So the link between food and climate is something we must make with a lot of sensitivity. And we can't separate what's happening to our health and the health of the planet, because the causes of the destruction are the same. The destruction of the planet in terms of extinction of species and climate change comes from the same fossil fuels making chemicals. Some chemicals, like the ones that blew up in Beirut, destroy the soil and create nitrous oxide. Other chemicals are extermination chemicals. They were used to kill people in Hitler's concentration camps. And they are killing 200,000 people with poisoning by pesticide every year. In India, the most frequent method of farmers in debt committing suicide is by drinking pesticides. And most significantly, the cancers around us are because of this. You have hundreds of thousands of cases now around the world on Roundup and glyphosate-induced cancer. And 3 to 4 of those cases have been won in spite of Bayer's best attempt. They could not overturn the ruling of the jury. So the health of the planet, our health is one health. And we will not be able to solve the climate problem till we return to the soil. The soil holds the answers for disease epidemics. It holds the answer for chronic diseases. It holds the answers for absorbing the carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide that is built up in the atmosphere and putting it back in the soil. And I know you're going to have many speakers talking about this, so I will not go into too much detail. But I would say, because in the United States, there's this big slogan of Medicare for all. We need to add to it 2 other slogans. Good food that brings health for all. We can't afford the luxury of eating poisons and junk. It is costing us too much, as I showed you with the figures I just shared in this new book, where I've put together 35 years of my work. It's called Biodiversity, Agroecology, and Regenerative Organic Agriculture. So far, it's only available from an Indian publisher, which is Westville Publishing, but it should be available soon in the United States too. Now, while we've been shut down, and while the climate problem was growing, basically the Copenhagen summit was stolen by the big polluters, and that is why Evo Morales got up and said, we were here to negotiate the rights of Mother Earth, not the rights of the polluters. And here are the polluters sitting outside the convention hall, saying we'll just have voluntary commitments, no more binding commitments to have binding reduction targets for emissions. And so he went back to Bolivia and then created this whole process on the rights of Mother Earth that's created an amazing movement, including the movement to declare crimes against nature and crimes against the earth ecocide. It is a track I will have to follow even more. And the person who got the World Food Prize this year, Ratan Lal, has said, using some of that inspiration, that for him the soil is living. And since the soil is living, the soil has rights. And if the soil has rights, then violating those rights of the soil is a crime. It's not just a crime against the soil, it's a crime against humanity, because we are the soil. The word human is derived from the word humus, which today means rich soil, organically rich soil. but its Latin roots are soil. We are soil. We are not separate from soil. And colonialism was a rupture, tearing away people from their land, whether it was as slaves in Africa. And for me, the Black Lives Matters marches are really about this root of injustice. Or it was tearing away the indigenous people from their land to make the cotton plantations, and an appropriation that's still carrying on. And also a license to kill, because colonialism needs to declare someone else's resources as your property. It requires calling the other people not human, and therefore bringing them a civilizing mission, which is colonialism. And the third is extracting from them in order to make wealth. From India, the British extracted $45 trillion, pushed 60 million people to famine. And we should be looking very closely at how large numbers are being pushed to hunger and famine. 1 billion are already hungry. According to the UN, 250 million will be added. Every day, 300,000 will die of hunger if we don't make these corrections. So at the Paris summit, which was the one after the Copenhagen summit, and then I'm watching, Bill Gates is on the stage giving instructions of what the solutions are. All false solutions: geoengineering, genetic engineering, money, technology, rather than love and care for the soil. And that's when I wanted to start looking, since when the unelected billionaires become bosses of elected governments and heads of state. And so these 5 years, we've seen that transition. And the new book I've written, which is out from Chelsea Green now for the United States, is called Oneness versus the 1%. I started writing it watching Bill Gates. The next year he was in India, imposing digital dictatorship, making cash illegal. Suddenly a new civilizing mission. If you have a hard-earned 10 rupees and you give it to buy your food for that day, that is illegal. Cash is the new contamination. People are the new pathogen. That is the worldview that is being created. And by 2016, a new discourse had started. That big data, which is what the digital economy needs, is the new oil. And I think this is a part of the work we all need to do. Those who are talking about soil, not oil, need to go back to what did the age of the old oil do? What is the age of the new oil as big data and digitalization, forced digitalization, compulsory digitalization? What is that going to do? What is its risk? And what is the age of soil going to do? So the age of oil as a metaphor for a fossilized heart and head of the colonizers, fossilized coal, fossilized oil, it gave us colonialism. New oil is giving us colonialism at a hyper level, where everything is a colony. Our seeds are a colony, our bodies are a colony, our minds are a colony. We are the new raw material that has to be mined. Our data has to be mined without our permission. And so much of the solutions in COVID are data mining to turn us literally into raw material, and our only function is as buyers of the gadgets, users of the algorithms. Even worse, our value will be set by those algorithms and that cryptocurrency. This is a system that will aggravate climate change, because it will aggravate energy use and it will aggravate emissions. Let me just give you a few figures. We've just started. It's a very intensive energy, the digital economy. They're already emitting 4% of the greenhouse gases. And its energy consumption is increasing every year by 9%. And this data was pre-COVID, when everything now has been digitalized. Data traffic is responsible for more than half of digital technology's global impact, with 55% of its annual energy consumption. Every byte transferred or stored requires large-scale energy-greedy terminals and infrastructures. The data shows that one transaction of Bitcoin uses as much energy as an entire household uses over a month in energy-guzzling Canada and North America. This traffic is currently increasing by more than 25% a year. So we are talking about the next climate disaster sitting in this digital dictatorship. But this digital dictatorship is pushing its boundaries on education, on health. In agriculture, they're now talking about digital agriculture, farming without farmers. So the old oil gave us chemicals that created greenhouse gases and extinction, the pesticides and the fertilizers. It was a marriage between Standard Oil and IG Farben. And now the marriage between the Rockefellers, the Bayer Monsantos, and big tech means poisons will not come down. You'll just be more dependent on data as the new commodity. In effect, farmers are being told, hand over your brain to the algorithms which mind what you know. Finally, the age of oil gave us cancers, both the foods as well as the toxics. We're going to get more cancers because we're going to use more of the chemicals. This is not substituting the toxic age of the poison cartel. It is accelerating it. What does the age of soil do? In Soil Not Oil, I had written, the age of oil has symbolized a rule of capital, of centralized control and coercive government, of pollution and non-sustainability, of injustice and iniquity, of violence and war. The age of soil symbolizes the age of Gaia, of the flowering of diversity and democracy, of justice, sustainability, and peace. I would rewrite that first para today. The age of new oil as big data, as digital dictatorship, symbolizes a rule of the billionaires, of centralized control, of surveillance capitalism and surveillance states working as one indivisible whole.
Thank you.
And the age of soil still has to continue, because the beauty about the soil is it is permanent, it is perennial. The different ages of oils have lasted. The first age of the fossilized empire, 500 years. The Green Revolution collapsed in India in 20 years. It's already fallen into disrepute in Africa. The GMO story lasted 20 years. I can predict that the house of cards that the digital empire is building can collapse in about 5 years. And that's why, while they're creating a house of cards that's going to collapse, let's build the economies of permanence with care for the earth, with care for our health. There was a recent study published just last week that while glyphosate gives you cancer, eating organic can reduce glyphosate in your body and your urine by 70% in 1 week. Look at the miracle of the soil. Look at the miracle of humans as part of the soil. Look at our potential of co-creating our future with the earth. If in the past we fought for narrow freedoms, women's liberation, liberation from slavery, an environmental movement, it is now to defend the continuum of life, which is held by the soil and supported by the soil. So in the next few years, we are going to see the contest between limitless greed and limitless power and limitless cruelty and limitless surveillance and the end of freedom, and struggles, new solidarities for life and for freedom. And we will be putting out a report on the global empires that are coming out. And on 2nd of October, which is the day of non-cooperation and civil disobedience, please look out at Navdanya International, and I'll make sure Miguel, to whom I will say hello, has all the details so we can organize soil not oil, civil disobedience for Gaia, to resist those who are destroying and denying Gaia. To me, the biggest denialism is not climate change alone. It is denialism of the earth as living, the soil as living, humans as sovereign, intelligent, compassionate beings. It's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you and good luck for the rest of the conference.
Vandana.
Hello.
Very nice to see you. Very nice to talk with you. I am so glad that you joined us. You know, last night I was remembering that we started working together 10 years ago in 2011.
On the GMO question.
Yes, with the GMO leveling campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
The justice begins with this that we launched in 2011 was very successful thanks to you, because you came and we gathered so many people, so many scientists, farmers, activists, and then we pushed for the Prop 37. The Prop 37 in California, that was a historic campaign. Also, Justice Begins with It was a historic conference that is the one before Soil Not All. So we have been organizing with you 10 conferences in 10 years.
Yes, yes. And Soil Not All has to be organizing for a very long time till we do
that.
Get rid of all kinds of oil. And the regeneration of soil takes place everywhere. So where are you now, Miguel? Are you still in California or you're somewhere else?
I am in San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas in Mexico, building my farm. And we're going to bring you, I was talking with Adelita San Vicente Tello yesterday, because we are live now, and I want to tell the public also, and I want to tell you that the Mexican government is working. There are two trains clashing now in Mexico. One is the train of the Agriculture Secretary, and the other one is the Environmental Secretary, the Secretary of Environment, that is Victor Toledo, an agroecologist. He's pushing to shift the paradigm, and he's gonna push the next 4 years out the agrochemicals from agriculture in Mexico. And now your friend Marilena Alvarez Bulla from the National Council of Science and Technology is developing new fertilizers that are organic, that are biological. So that is her work, her commitment. According to the president, he says they are developing this, so in 4 years we don't need at all corporations. We're going to get rid of them. And also in 2013, we launched the campaign to stop the permits, so they didn't release the permits to grow GMO corn in Mexico, and we won. Remember, we invite you to national TV in Mexico to talk about GMOs with Aristegui, and it was very successful, that campaign, that they were never able to grow GMO corn. So we have been connecting all these struggles through Justice Begins with It, so not all through you and people working in different places. And I am so happy that we are changing also things here in Mexico.
Well, give my love to all the friends in Mexico, to Adelita, to Maria Elena, and strength to Mexico. Today, Punjab, where I studied and did my MSc honors, where the poisons were the deepest. I wrote my book, Violence of the Green Revolution, where I found out this was oil. This chemical came from Hitler's Germany and concentration camps. Today, they banned 9 chemicals. So I feel, even though the bullies and the brutes think they have a lot of power, but it's a very unstable power. It's the house of cards power. And our persistence, our commitment is all it needs. This house of cards will come down. I'm saying, if we continue to work, let's bring this house of cards down the next 5 years and make the world poison free, as we've done in the Navdanya movement. Please visit the Navdanya International website, all of you. And for those who want to join a course that I offer every year, this year it's called Return to Earth, on the A to Z of soil and seed, from the 5th of October to the 11th of October, this year like this, but we're making films and videos of our work. You can go to the navdanya.org website, Earth University at navdanya.org. And I hope to see some of you then, but keep strong, and let's create a new world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vandana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes soon.